tu t'appelles?
Je m'appelle Céline, comment tu t'appelles?
Je m'appelle Jean-Luc, tu étais belle.
Toi tu es très beau, allez, let's go!
So we're at the first ever Gambero Rosso touring event in San Diego, which is a big deal for San Diego. The Gambero Rosso is the #1 guide to Italian wines that's out there today. Anyway, let's go inside and taste some wines.
Je suis un garçon, j'aime tant les garçons.
So one of the things that a lot of people don't realize when they go to taste wine is that a lot of times the glass smells like detergent. So one of the first things you're going to do when you taste wine, and I'm going to go ahead and start with some wines by Allegrini. Since the station is unmanned, I'm going to take the opportunity to, and one of the first things you want to do is you want to rinse your glass with some wine. Hi, how are you?
Good, you?
Good, I'm just rinsing a little bit before I taste. So yeah, here we are tasting 04 Sassicaia, the new vintage. Sassicaia, if you haven't heard about Sassicaia, it's one of Italy's most famous wines. It's one of Italy's most collectible wines. It is what some people call the first super Tuscan. I'm not a big fan of Bordeaux-style wines that are made in Italy. I'm not a big fan of wines that are aged in barrique. What I like about Sassicaia is that they do it in a very judicious style. You know, if I'm going to drink a super Tuscan, it's got to be Sassicaia. This is a super Tuscan that's made by the Frescobaldi winery in Mondavi, if I'm not mistaken. It's done in Montalcino. It's a Bordeaux-style blend, and it's a wine that we won't be tasting today. It's a really well-made wine, but to me, it's exactly what Amarone shouldn't taste like. It's too concentrated. It's got too much wood on it. It's exactly what we call a spoofilated wine. And to me, what really sucks about a wine like that is that you lose the sense of place because the wood, the concentration, you're not tasting Valpolicella anymore. You're tasting, you know, Corvina, Molinara, and Rondinella grapes that could have been grown in my backyard.
The Americans have gotten away from the image of Italian wine just as Chianti in a flask. And they can now discourse really well on the subtleties of the different vineyard villages like Castellina, Chianti, Panzano. They can do all of that very interestingly because they've tasted the wines. They've actually been there.
But you think that San Diegans like Italian wine?
Yes, it's very similar. It's similar the people, it's similar the attitude.
Mm-hmm.
So we are Mediterranean, you are a little bit Mediterranean too. And the weather, the trees are the same. And the face of the people is very similar.
The United States have always been a fantastic market for our wines. In a world which goes towards globalization, where Chardonnay, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot are the main issues in the vineyards all over the world, Italy goes towards another direction, and people is fascinated by this, by our wealth of indigenous varieties and a different taste which Italy can offer in the wine world.
So the Rock and Roll Sommelier survived the Gambero Rosso tasting of Italian wines in San Diego, California. You can tell from looking at my fingers, my purple fingers and my purple teeth, that I've tasted a lot of wine. Tasted a lot of spoofilated wine, tasted some barriqued wine, but I also tasted some real gems and found some surprises. I talked to a lot of nice people. It's really interesting to see San Diego people react to Italian wines they've never tasted before. There's not a lot of wine in San Diego, Italian wine in San Diego, California, and I'm really glad to see an event like this. I'm really glad to see the response it had, and I hope they'll bring it back again next year. So Daniele Cernilli, if you're listening, please come back.
Allô, allô, je t'aime, je t'aime. Allô, allô.